Hi everyone, I'm Susan Mulvihill. I'm out in our orchard today because I'm getting ready to prune our fruit trees. Now, we still have a lot of snow on the ground, but late winter and very early spring are the best times to prune your fruit trees before the leaves start coming out on the branches. Now, if you're feeling a little bit daunted about pruning, stay right where you are because I've got all sorts of tips to share with you today. We're growing 20 fruit trees. Many of them are well established. Some of them are rather small because we're always searching for the best varieties. Now, I made myself a list of everything we're growing because I thought I'll never remember it off the top of my head, and you might be curious to know which varieties we have in here. For apples, we're growing Macintosh, Fuji, Jonagold, Honeycrisp, and Gravenstein. Pears, we have Comis and Anjou. This is an Italian prune plum. For apricots, we're growing Tiltons. Cherries, we have Bings, Rainier, English Morello, and Montmorency. And for peaches, we have Blushing Star and Red Haven. Now, all of these varieties do well here in eastern Washington state. So if you are interested in growing fruit trees, it's really important that you contact your local master gardeners to find out which varieties would grow well in your area and also how to take care of them. Which brings me to a very important point. If you're going to grow fruit trees, make sure you take care of them. You're not doing your neighbors any favors if you aren't taking care of them. So let's say you have disease or insect problems. Those could very easily affect your neighbor's trees. So take good care of your fruit trees. When it comes to pruning tools, you need a few things to do the job. It certainly doesn't hurt to have a step ladder in case you have something a little bit higher that you need to reach, but be careful. Certainly you need hand pruners. That's what I use the very most. These ones are Corona Flex style pruners, and what I really like about them is you can dial it down so that the pruners don't open so wide each time to make a cut, and that really makes it easier on your hand. Also, if you have something that's larger than, say, 1 inch in diameter, maybe even a little bit less than that, it's nice to have a hand saw. And of course, loppers are really helpful for the larger branches, but ones that aren't any larger than 1 inch in diameter. This is quite a young peach tree, and something I wanted to point out is if you have some new trees, they really don't need any pruning at all unless there's a broken branch. Then I would trim that off. But let it grow for a couple of years before you begin your annual pruning routine. Speaking of broken branches, this peach tree is a little bit older than the other one. And look what I see. Here's a broken branch, and there's another one on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and prune those off right away. So the very first thing that you're looking for when you're approaching a tree that needs pruning is, are there any damaged or diseased or broken branches? And so in this case, I really just had those 2 broken branches. This peach tree really has quite a nice shape. I like how it's developing. And I really don't feel the need to take anything else off because so far it's growing very nicely. This is our Gravenstein apple tree, and I'm going to take a moment and focus on something that I don't like at all. Do you see how this branch is going straight up towards the top of the tree? That branch is not going to do anything good, so I'm going to go ahead and prune it off. And then if I zoom back out, above it are more branches that are going straight up, and we call those water sprouts. So those are going to get pruned off next. Let me show you how to do it. So here's this offending branch. And when you prune off a branch, never prune it like this, where you're leaving what's called a stub cut. Instead, prune it off even with the branch, like so. And it will heal over naturally. You don't need to put anything on there. The trees know how to heal themselves. Now, some of the other things I'm going to show you are sometimes a little hard to see. I've got a branch that's coming out this way. I've got a branch that's coming out on an angle right toward this branch. So I'm going to trim off this one. And then I just kind of look at this one and go, is that going to be all right? I don't think so. So I'm going to go ahead and prune it off, but I'm going to prune it off with a little bit extra because these little guys here are called fruit spurs, and that's where some of the apples will develop. So I'm going to leave those in place. I'm also going to prune off any branches that are pointing down. And while I'm at it, I'm also going to eliminate branches that could potentially poke me in the eye when I am mowing. So we'll just get rid of some of those low branches. So I don't really care for this branch heading out the way it is, so I'm going to trim it right at that junction there. This one is a little borderline. I think I'll go ahead and prune it as well. And these over here, look at this one. It's heading into these branches. You don't want branches to be crossing or heading in toward the center of the tree. So I'm going to go ahead and prune that one and this one. And each time I'm making a cut that is pretty flush with the branch that it came off of. This branch is also heading in that direction. So you just have to really kind of study the tree and decide what is going to be a problem. Now I'm hoping the camera will focus on what I'm trying to do here because there's all these other branches in the background for it to focus on. But once you have made all of your remedial cuts, so that would be damaged or broken branches, crossing branches, those branches that are going into the center of the tree, or the ones that grow straight up, those water sprouts. Once you remove those, you want to make a few fine-tuning cuts. So you'll notice on this apple tree, I've got this branch, it's heading that way. And if I make a cut to an outside bud so that it grows a horizontal branch, I will have better productivity on this apple tree. And that's because horizontal branches get more sunshine, and it makes all the difference. I learned this a few years ago, and wow, what a difference. So what I'm looking at on this branch is where is an outside bud. I've got one here, I've got one here, so I'm going to go with that one, and I just will prune right above it. And what will happen this year is it will send out a branch this way, and there will be more light onto it. Now this pear tree is just a few years old, so I really don't want to mess with it, but actually I'm quite happy with the way it's growing. The only thing I don't really like is this branch that's heading into there. So I'm going to go ahead and prune that off. Done. I like the easy trees. This is another fairly young tree. And the only thing that I don't like, because again I don't want to prune off a lot, is I don't like these branches coming out from the main trunk so low, and this one is going to interfere with the branch here. So each one I'm going to cut off flush with the trunk to remove those problems. Now you might have a fruit tree that has a sucker coming up from the roots, and if you have that happen, trim them off right flush with the ground level. For plum trees, they should have an open sort of vase-like structure. That's what you'll see in the literature. And I really like the shape of this tree for the most part. I just see a few branches that are heading for trouble, basically. So I'm just going to make a couple little cuts here and there, and that's all. Now when you're finished pruning, don't cart away all of your lovely trimmings. Save the straight ones and use them in your garden for stakes. I've got a ton of these that are going to be perfect for staking up my pea plants, and you'll see that in a future video. I have some taller ones that I'm going to use to make some obelisks to support plants in the garden, and that will look really cool. So don't waste all this lovely natural material. Well, I'm going to finish up my pruning and then that task is done for the year. But one thing I wanted to mention is that we grow everything here, including our tree fruits, organically. And yes, it's very doable. So one of my goals for this year is to shoot videos on how we do just that, so you can learn too. So watch for those videos. And in the meantime, happy gardening.